What if I don't want to take baby steps? What if I want to take giant steps? Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents Channel. My name is Jesse Durham. I'm going to give a brief introduction before sharing a podcast episode that I did with the banking bro, J. Do. That's Jeremiah Do from the Cash Compound. I was back in studio at the Greer office, South Carolina, and we'd gotten on this topic of discussing Dave Ramsey, his baby steps. J. Do shared his experience with Ramsey solutions, ideas, and philosophies. I shared mine. We'd both implemented different trajectories. We had different experiences. And of course, we did all that with an infinite banking lens. He had prior history with Ramsey first. I had IBC first before discovering Dave Ramsey and his books. And I've actually just finished reading The Legacy Journey, which is, one of a handful of books that I've read. So anyway, we had a great conversation talking about getting out of debt, emergency funds, saving for college, saving for retirement, investing for retirement. Let's be real clear here. Whether or not to pay off home mortgage. And then, of course, we talk about all things infinite banking. So it was a great conversation that we had about these two lenses when it comes to personal finance. And I'm going to share it here, hoping that you'll have some takeaways like I did from the conversation. Enjoy.
Is debt dumb? Is cash really king? Coming up next, J-Do and Jesse explore those things that you've heard from Dave. Welcome, everybody. It is the Cash Compound Podcast, and I've got one of the bros here. And if you're not a bro, what exactly are you, sir? Who's in studio with me today?
A buddy. Jesse Durham.
Okay, we got the banking buddies and bros in here, ladies and gents. We're talking about this man. If you can see us, and if you recognize any of those cliches from our opener, who is our subject today, Jesse?
Dave Ramsey.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, do you know about this man? Some of the people who do what we do admire him, and some of the people who do what we do call him maybe a financial entertainer. I've heard that phrase a few times from some of our friends and colleagues out there in our space. Let's take it back. Jesse, tell us about your introduction or experience with Dave Ramsey, the best-selling author, the radio show host guru, the marketing genius, and of course that debt guy. Tell us about how'd you learn about this dude?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm sure he was one of those voices because he's been on air for so long. I'm sure he's one of those voices that I would have heard as I was flipping to find the music again.
Oh, got it. Okay. What type of music were you looking for?
Country, probably.
Gross.
It's okay. Nobody's perfect.
Okay.
And that's just a demonstration right there. But,
Yep.
when I did become aware, when I had my personal financial renaissance, I guess in 2015, sometime thereafter, I did come across him and actually feel open-minded enough to listen to what it was that he had to say and started reading his books and things like that. So I don't have a specific moment, I don't think.
So I kind of do, and I've mentioned it on our show in previous podcasts, probably with my brother before, but my awakening to financial ideas and Dave Ramsey kind of came at the same time. Once again, previous to that, I was in college, wasn't really thinking about it, let alone open. I wasn't worried about that. I'm hanging out and having a good time. So this is about 2005, 2006, and Dave Ramsey was on the marquee of the Baptist church in our town. And my mom saw it and she was like, oh, that seems interesting or something. And so she looked him up, and that's when the radio show kind of made its way. And some of the financial renaissance, as you said, started to make its way into my my family with my parents. So I'm just coming of age, about to finish school, 2005, 2006. And eventually my mother hands me this book right here. So this is the question. What book are we talking about? His first book, his main one, he gives it away like by the billions. This man gives away more of these books than Chick-fil-A sandwiches out there. What is that book? Have you read it, sir?
Yes, I've read it. I've read it and a few others. What I want to know, though, is when you were having a good time as a college student, what kind of music were you listening to when you had a good time?
Not country. I was trying to listen to good music so we could have a good time. Nobody wanted to get sick or throw up, so we didn't listen to country. Okay, so that's a whole nother podcast, though, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. So now we'll stick to it for just 1 second. So who is like your country artist? classic artist. Classic.
I mean, you got to think though. When I say country, I'm not talking about anything in the past 20 years, probably.
Yeah. So that helps me with classic. Yeah. So let's go classic, not pop, not current. Let's go more classic. Who do you like?
Diamond Rio. Would jump out to me.
Okay.
Alabama.
They have a lot of roots in South Carolina.
Right.
Yeah. I know some of the people who have played alongside them, been on some of those tracks and albums. But anyway, I told you that was a whole nother topic. I have some ties to the South Carolina Entertainment and Music Hall of Fame. So I actually know some of these topics, but I can't listen to these people. Come on now. All right. Alabama's actually coming to town.
Fantastic.
Before the year's over. We live in Greenville, South Carolina. I do anyway. Jesse, where are you coming from as a coach for the Cash Compound?
Tryon, North Carolina.
Okay. Back to Dave. He is in, where is it? Brentwood, Tennessee? Is that what
Tennessee.
It is? Isn't it? I think it's Brentwood because it's the same name as the suburb in LA. And he is in Nashville suburb, right?
Sounds
Brentwood?
Right. Sounds right.
I don't know.
It's Tennessee.
Tennessee. It is in Tennessee. And the Total Money Makeover. This book started the phenomenon. Okay. Prior to this, he does have a book that came out before this book. Do you remember what that book is called?
Mm-mm.
I don't either, now that I called it up. I believe it's called Financial Peace. I think that's the name of the book.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I think that's the name
of his program.
Well, it's his program, but originally I think it's the name of the book.
I got you.
So, yeah, that one's a little bit thicker. But this one breaks down the baby steps. We're going to talk through these 7 baby steps and what we think of them and how they might relate to the concept of cash flow, which we think is king. He says cash is king, but I think it's a little bit more about cash flow. Mm-hmm. And there's a product and process in place with us and the people that we teach that challenges some of his premises around his baby step program and some of the financial tools he likes to talk about and endorse, namely life insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into those baby steps. Jesse, tell us from memory right here, right now, what are the baby steps? What do they mean? Go in order. There are 7. Yeah,
the outline is number 1, save up an emergency. It's a baby emergency fund. So save up $1,000 as quickly as you can. Step 2 is begin your debt snowball, paying off all your debt, starting with the smallest, working up to the greatest amount, regardless of interest rates and those types of things that are on those.
Unless the interest rates are very, very similar.
And then step 3, go ahead and fully fund your, excuse me. Step 3 is go ahead and fully fund your emergency fund because you're out of debt. So 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Step 4 is putting 15% into your retirement. He talks about 401ks, Roth IRAs. And 5 is saving for children's college. And then 6 is paying off the mortgage early. And then step number 7 is, generational wealth building, legacy, giving back, taking that to a new level.
Well done, sir. That was all 7 from memory. I was checking you from the table of contents in my personal copy, The Total Money Makeover. Now, as I mentioned, we have some challenges and some maybe rebuttals to some of his theories and planning. But first off, let me say that we do not hate this man. Mm-mm. This is a good dude, right? I've seen him in person maybe 2 times. Have you been to one of his seminars or events?
Nope, just read behind him and listened to him.
Okay, so I've seen him in my town, not that original time, 2005, 2006. I think my mother may have gone to that church to see him, but I wasn't involved at that point. And I have seen him since that time. I shook his hand, gotten him to write his name in one of my books for me that I don't know where it is now. But I have read maybe 6 of his 9, 8 books.
I've probably read a handful.
Yeah. So I've read a whole handful of these. So we do not think, ladies and gentlemen, that because we actually practice some things that are opposite, some things that challenge, some things that fundamentally have a different outcome, a different starting point and a different outcome from the financial tools or ways he goes about things, we are not here to slam this man on some sort of moral or ethical high ground. You got that?
That's right. He's funny, best-selling author,
Christian dude,
business mogul,
helping people,
self-acclaimed funny hillbilly from Tennessee.
Okay. Okay. That's the only hillbilly from Tennessee I think I know. But we are here to challenge some of his theories surrounding the premises that he has. And first off, let's talk about some of his first couple of baby steps. Now, what do you think, Jesse, and what's your take on baby step number 1, baby step number 2? How do you feel about those?
Absolutely. There's no question that at any time in anybody's life, in debt, out of debt, that you want to be able to have immediate access to capital, to money.
Right.
No question.
Okay, so when we talk about the emergency fund, do you think this is a good idea?
Yeah.
He's also been saying, how much is this emergency fund that he talks
The
about?
baby one,
Yeah.
the first starter is $1,000.
Okay, now these days, we've had such a change, I think, in inflationary practices by our government since I first saw this in 2005, 2006. I was also a single dude, married with 4 kids at this point. How do you feel about $1,000?
Well, statistically, I still hear things, and I'm not going to quote anything, but I know this is roughly close, that, the vast majority of folks can't absorb a $500 medical emergency.
Okay.
That's still being touted in 2023.
Yeah,
So I'm still going to say that if you've got $1,000, married or unmarried kids or no kids, it's better than not having $1,000. So it just puts you ahead of the masses.
I agree.
But if you want to scale that up, then
I think you can, and I believe he probably allows for that. As people are going through his steps, even strictly, or you do join his course and class. Definitely taught in like faith communities a lot, financial peace, the group session, and all that. I'm sure there are families out there, or even people who are single folks who may have some sort of big opportunity to get hurt or lose money. Like, look, we need more than $1,000, right? We need $2,500 in this first baby step, and sometimes people are able to knock that baby step out as they're approaching their debt snowball, right? Because that's coming. That's the one I want to ask you about next. They knock that out in one day because they've got it already. They've got it saved up somewhere, even if they've got hundreds of thousands, 6-figure debts. They're like, oh, I got $1,000
right now
sitting right here, $2,500. Okay, so let's move into number 2. Let's move into number 2, and then we will pause and assess, because I think as we move into number 1 and 2, somewhere in there, we'd have to throw in our first challenge are surrounding the concept of financing purchases. And that's what we're doing here, because now if you're saving a few dollars for your emergency fund, let's assume the washer is going to go out, car's going to break down, right? You need new tires, new brakes. That's normal. We all deal with that. However, once we get into step 2, we're now spending money. Yes, to get out of this debt snowball. I want to hear your take on it. And then I'm going to have to challenge you on what he says, because if we're spending money, we got to spend it from somewhere. And that's where we're going to come in and start talking about the banking concept. Tell us about the debt snowball, man. What is it? How do you feel about it?
So the debt snowball again is, attacking, and he says with gazelle intensity,
right?
That smallest debt, whatever it happens to be, and then start working your way up. And here's where I see R. Nelson Nash, Robert Kiyosaki, Dave, they're all on the same page as far as, the All-American is in this situation. And that's accurate.
Sure. They have debt, and it is crippling because our income is promised to someone else. Our income becomes someone else's passive income because we owe them money, and there's also interest and finance charges that they have put right into that paperwork. We now owe them the money. So I'm with you.
Yep. So, and it's not even just the money; it's the time that's associated with that future earning, that we've not even experienced yet.
Right.
So they all agree there, because those are the facts. That just is what it is. But what you see different in becoming your own banker, and that you hear even from folks like Robert Kiyosaki, who's maybe on another end of the spectrum from a Dave Ramsey, even though they're friends and whatnot, admittedly, is assets could be paying for those liabilities.
Oh, okay. So we've got liabilities. We got debts, right? We got Visa. We got student loans, although y'all ain't been paying your student loans, I heard. Okay. We got car payments. We got house payments. And we've got consumer debts. And you're saying, and some of these other financial geniuses and whiz people are saying, hey, there are things that you can buy or own that can pay those bills.
That's right.
Okay, got it. So, but how do you feel about, let's go a little bit more basic for just 1 second. Do you believe that debt is a problem? Consumer debt is crippling all-American family?
Yes. It's summed up in Parkinson's law.
Okay.
There's this natural human tendency to spend what we earn, if not more.
And of course, a luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity, right? So we have a hard time going backward. Okay, so here's the thing. Debt is going to... tell us about, once again, you mentioned that we're going to pay off our debt smallest to largest, right? That's what he says. And barring any very similar interest rates with super differences in balances, we're just going to go smallest to largest on number.
And to his credit, I like that he does that. I like that he tries to help the mathematically inclined and say, I know you could do the math and actually figure out that this card with this rate should mathematically be addressed first. But Dave, to his credit, also addresses human nature first, saying it doesn't matter. You need a quick win as a person, as a human being. You need a quick win. So just go to the smallest one, irrespective of the interest rate, and pay that thing off and get a win under your belt. I like that.
Yeah, Nelson talks about the human problems left and right, and we go from smallest to largest because we need those quick wins. We need the psychology of knowing that we're headed somewhere. Because if we're going for the big debt or the big interest rate first and not something that we can actually knock off the list, when we can't get there, it becomes overwhelming. The number was too big. I had an emergency. I got hungry. I went out to eat. My whole system is blown, right? You don't want to get into that. You want to get the momentum. He has a great talk that he did in an Atlanta church that I've listened to at least 100 times called the momentum theorem. Have you ever heard of that? The momentum theorem was legit. Now, this is before my IBC days, and I'm telling you, I loved it. Okay, so here we go. We're now going to pay off our debt. Here's the problem that Nelson Nash would help us understand is that we finance everything we buy. We either borrow money from other people and owe them money, or we lose the cash that we used to have. And here's where Nelson's premise and fundamental product for the process of infinite banking would change that. Dave would say we're going to pay off our debts in cash, with cash. And Nelson would remind us that if we spend our cash, it's now gone. And there's an alternative product for the process of spending money from, which was hard for me to grasp. Why? Because I was a cash guy. Now tell us about your habits. Jesse, were you a cash guy? Were you a debt guy? When you saw Dave Ramsey, did you ever use this program? Did you use it to get out of debt? That's where most people sit. They're working with this man's program. They're on the radio. He's yelling at them. And he's saying, sell the car. And he's saying, pay off your debt. Use cash. What's your take on cash?
Right. So thankfully for me, I was exposed to the infinite banking concept first.
Really?
Yep. But
I did not realize that. See, my Dave experience predates IBC by a decade.
Right.
Decade.
And I remember us having that conversation years and years ago for the first time. But yeah, so I was exposed to becoming your own banker first. So I was already on the path of becoming my own banker, but I was really open-minded at that point. So I was still open to hearing from other financial resources at that time. And I love Dave's structure. There's nothing unstructured about the man. No matter what you feel about this way or that way or right or wrong, he's very, very structured. And people need structure. So I liked that about him. So I was able to temper, some of the things that I see differently than Dave does that we're talking about right now or getting ready to, because I actually had becoming your own banker in my mind first.
That's crazy to me. Because lots of people, especially in larger faith communities, know of Dave, and I know that's your background as well, just like mine, is, Dave was what my friends started talking about. Dave is what my friends' parents were using to pay off their debt and get out of their boat loan and, sell that timeshare off. Message. Y'all heard about that timeshare deal he's dealing with, right?
Yep.
Okay, but anyway, we ain't here for that. That's a whole nother topic. So here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, remember that if you are considering what we generally talk about here, we want to pause for just a second and help you be challenged on the thinking that where you house your capital, where you warehouse your wealth is very important. And Dave would use an envelope or a regular conventional bank on the corner by CVS. But Jesse, remind us where we are spending money from, even if we're paying off debt at this point, if we're using Nelson's programs.
We're using properly structured whole life policies with mutual companies that pay dividends.
So here's the question. Can we still get out of debt or use that program, that policy, that product to get out of consumer debts? Can we even still do it? Or we're like, no, you're going to be in debt now.
That's what we did in my house.
Okay. Yeah. So you actually did what was similar, or how close to the debt snowball did you kind of do while spending money from a policy? Help us understand your process.
Yep. So when we first saw a presentation on the infinite banking concept, we were in debt. We had the car, we had student loans, we did pay ours.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
We had the credit cards. So we had all the normal things.
Now, about how much of debt did you have? Do you remember?
Ballpark, 40, 50,000.
Okay, 40, 50, let's say 50,000. It's an easy round number. And was this including your home? Did you own a home? Did you
that
have
was
a mortgage
not including the home.
Okay. All right. So we've got cars, student loans, and some consumer debts. Yes? Okay, cool. Keep going.
Yep. So when we saw the infinite banking presentation, we saw the debt recapture model. And we're like, well, that's us. That's what we want to do. Of course, why not use, our dollars?
So when you say debt recapture, explain to our audience what that might mean again.
So not just paying off the debt.
Okay.
So you already said it. As far as, everything is finance. Once somebody recognizes that banking is a function, that it exists, and that you can use your dollars to perform more than one task. We had debt. We wanted to pay it off. Dave says, you got debt, you need to pay it off. Awesome. When you arrive at knowing you want to pay it off, you literally got to decide, well, do I want to do one thing with this dollar, or do I want to do multiple things? And we decided to fund properly structured whole life policies with mutual companies that pay dividends, use that asset, as Robert Kiyosaki would describe it, to pay for the liability of the debt that we had. So we had the debt, we wanted to pay it off, but we wanted to do multiple jobs with the same dollars instead of just the one.
See, I love that. And it took me a while to understand that. And I know lots of people, this is why we have a podcast with visuals. If you want to hear us and see us on YouTube out there or watch our stuff, is I didn't quite understand without a visual, how do I get my dollar to do more than one thing? I was a cash guy. I was a Dave Ramsey type of follower. So if I spend $1, if I go to the store and spend $1, if I swipe my card and it represents dollars, it did one thing and that's it. And I had a hard time realizing, and I think a lot of people do, that I can pay myself first in a properly structured policy that I own, and the dollars are still within my control, being facilitated by an insurance company, but they give me a separate pool of dollars to go spend around, and I can pay off my debt with their money while my money is earning me the access to their money. So my dollars are now doing more than one thing. It took me a while, man. It took me a while. I love it. So you went through that process, paying off your debt in a snowball style, just like we show in our regular presentation. Of course, click below for that presentation and watch it yourself. But you were facilitating that, like we show it, through a policy. Crazy.
Yep. So that's what I liked about it, was that even the things that I liked about what I got from Dave's structure, like I was mentioning earlier, well, having a policy and practicing becoming your own banker still allowed me to set aside an emergency fund. Yeah. I just wanted 100%. It to be in a very particular place. Yeah, a place that was going to be compounding, a place that was going to allow me to
You can put your emergency fund in a
access.
Folgers can in the backyard. You can put it under your mattress. But we decided to place our emergency fund in the policy, is what you're saying.
That's right. Yeah. And then at the same time, from the same policy or policies, we were also paying off the debts and recapturing those interest dollars.
Love it. Okay, so here we go. Hopefully you got some of that, but let's keep moving forward. Step 3.
Yeah. So step 3 is you're out of debt now. It's time to fully fund your emergency fund. So Dave says 3 to 6 months of living expenses.
Okay. Do you have any beef with that? Any questions? Any concerns?
I think it's a great idea. Especially for those that, and again, I'm saying, because I can't forget about becoming your own banker. If throughout this whole time of paying off debts, recapturing interest dollars, compounding your money, growing your net worth, protecting people, within your household, all that's still taking place. So yeah, absolutely, it behooves anyone to, because either way, if you're your own banker, when the time comes for emergency, you want to be well capitalized, period.
Right.
When the time comes for opportunity, you also want to be well capitalized. So it makes sense to amass capital. He who has the gold makes the rules. Yeah. So if in my mind I'm saying, well, I want to be prepared for an emergency that could be, 3 months duration, 6 months duration, awesome. That's a great thing to do. But if along the way an opportunity comes up for me to participate in more wealth producing activity, awesome.
Love it. Okay, let's move on to baby step 4 then. I don't have any beef with being fully capitalized just for emergencies. I think that's great. And Lord knows when you got little kids, they come up. Baby step 4.
All right, so this is going
to be another challenge for us.
This is a big one. This is probably the first big one that we're coming to. So Dave says 15% towards retirement.
15% of like your income or after-tax dollars.
That's right. And right off the bat, I believe Dave says, when I reference his books, he actually does use the word invest. And I'm just going to mention this here real quick. But there are many people in the financial entertainment world that do use the word
Save.
Yikes. That is inaccurate.
Yeah.
Right. So it is important to recognize that if you are doing something with qualified plans or what have you, that is investing. That is not saving for retirement.
And okay, so help us understand that distinction. What is saving then, and why is qualified plans, why is it investing?
Well, I would say even if we reference your coffee can analogy, there's a certain element of risk if I just put cash money in a coffee can. So
I guess so.
I think all assets or potential assets should be compared to each other. And we still arrive at the properly structured whole life policies.
Yep. Okay.
Because there are more than a dozen characteristics that put them at the top of the list. So saving money should be a guaranteed thing. Should be. But investing is not. There's an element of risk, obviously, with investing. So that's why I think it's important to make a distinction of, are you actually saving towards retirement, or are you investing towards retirement?
And of course, you're saying this because in a qualified plan, a government-sponsored program that's probably also co-authored and sponsored by your job, 403B, 457, IRAs, right, 401ks, those types of things, is your dollars are at risk based on performance of outside forces like the stock market.
They sure
Up,
are.
down, left, right, and they're out of your control. That's another big deal and huge piece that I don't think we talk about enough, but we're going to get into that in some of our subscriptions and our Ask Me Anythings. And we help people understand that more, is it's out of your control on what it's going to do, even if it's going up or if it's going up this year or most years, it's out of your control. You don't know, and it is at risk.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And one thought that I'm having as we're talking about this is, I know there are all different kinds of folks out there, but let's say I'm running a landscaping business.
All right. Got you. I had one around the time I learned about Dave, and it was rough. I got allergies, man. That was the wrong business to start.
Oh, okay. Well,
it was bad.
So when I think about investing for the retirement, because we talk to folks, and some folks will even ask us, what should I be doing for retirement? And that's its own conversation. But what I like going back to from Nash's work is just start with whatever you're already doing, because everybody could just start with their household. Everybody could just start with their lifestyle, right? Their cars, their appliances, their college education. That's going to be the next one that we're going to go to here in a second anyways.
Okay.
What if you just finance those things for yourself, things that things that are in your control, right? Versus looking to outside things like the New York Exchange or the S&P 500 or whatever, right?
Big deal. Okay, so I am going to bring up another challenge here, because at this point he is talking about investing for your future, for that retirement. And so this is where you're going to hear a lot of people come at us with that. See, we should have bought term insurance, and we should be saving or investing the difference in potential growth assets or whatever. And yeah, we have to mince words here, because is it going to grow? Is it guaranteed? Is it an asset? Is it savings? All that type of thing. So Dave is going to be pushing you or reminding you at this point, if not earlier, that you should have had term insurance. Whole life is a ripoff. Whole life is not a savings vehicle. Whole life will steal your cash value and all that stuff. Speak to that and help us understand what he is saying about life insurance at this point. He's not going to make it past baby step 4 without having you on the life insurance game at this point, but it's not whole life.
Right. And he's not going to make it past step 4 without starting to name call either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So again, much appreciation and respect for the real estate mogul, businessman, best-selling author, everything that he is. But when it comes to this point of buying term and investing, the difference, there's a big difference between talking about just that versus asking who controls the banking function in your life. Because when I look at all of his steps and I see an emergency fund at step 1, that's financed one way or another. Either I've got $1,000 on a credit card that I can use at need, right? And that's financed with a third party, or I set aside $1,000 of my own money and it's financed in that way.
Right.
That step is financed, period. The banking function is taking place. I go to step 2, debts, that's financed. Step 3, full emergency fund, that's financed. Step 4, step 5, 6, all of his steps They're not they're not separate from
They're not.
the
They
banking
have to.
function.
The money has to come from somewhere. That's a huge thing, and that's why it took me so long to understand. The money has to come from somewhere, and if you spent it and it's gone, or you borrow it from someone else, like or put it on a credit card, you owe interest, right? Mm-hmm. You're now going to be in debt for the future until you pay that off. So when people are talking about buy term and invest the difference, we also have to remind people that the asset of whole life insurance is going to be for your whole life, and term is going to expire. That's the whole point of it. And at that point, if you don't have a performing portfolio of these investments that he just says average 8%, right? He loves these growth stock
Averages.
mutual funds.
Yep.
The reason I'm saying that is because, one, there's a lot of people who are listening to us, Jesse, who think, number one, we still don't like this guy, which is not true. And number two, that he is saying things that we don't understand, which is also not true. Like, I think we have quoted this man 25 times. We've got 3 books on the table, ladies and gentlemen. We know what he's talking about, and they're ours. Yeah, 100%. Okay. So here's the thing at this point. We're talking about not cash being king, but cash flow being king. Let's bring that up at this point. Once again, when we're talking about these retirement investment opportunities that he's talking about, what's the difference between that and cash flowing? Because are we cash flowing those retirement programs?
No, the answer is no, we're not. We're told to lock our money up for, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Don't touch it. Assume all that risk. What are the guarantees? That it won't go below zero, is what we commonly say about
right.
401ks, for example.
Right. We can't.
You're picking between 3 settings. Do I want to expose what I'm investing to a mild, a moderate, or a higher level of risk? And that's
right.
it.
Big
That's
deal.
our level of control.
Big deal. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, at this point, before we go on to number 5, we've got to remind people that whole life insurance is not an investment.
That's right. Not an
Big
investment.
deal at this point, because you might be trying to compare growth rates, interest rates of investments at this point in your qualified plans or other places to store your money. Whole life insurance is the guarantee that you can go invest your money.
Mm-hmm. And Dave will try and say that whole life insurance is, insurance plus this investment vehicle or this savings vehicle. And that's
not true. Not whole life insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, that does apply to universal life insurance and other types of insurance. It does not apply to whole life. Big deal. Right. That's the only style of insurance that we would promote and use for the product, for the process of banking. Step number 5, Jesse, let's move on.
Yep. Children's college. So save for that. And he leaves that pretty well open because, of course, you're already, fully funding your retirement at that point. This is the excess above and beyond already being fully funded in your emergency fund, 15%. So whatever that amount is, that's what you need to be putting towards children's college.
Now, he has a lot of Ramsey personalities, and so a lot of thoughts about college financing, because college is or is not a guarantee of your child's future success, my friend.
For sure. And he puts out a lot of great, common sense approaches to college. Like he'll talk about, go in state versus out of state. Like that's just good information. That's smart,
Right.
If that makes sense for you and if that fits for you. But ultimately, it does sidestep the banking function again, which is so crucial for us, getting money to cash flow for funding college or whatever it happens to be.
Right, because, of course, college is no predictor of your child's future success. I do not think that every person out there, maybe including myself, feels or even thinks they have a moral obligation to pay anything toward their kids' college. I'm not sure it's my problem, Jesse. How do you feel?
Well, I think it's an interesting question just because, I grew up in a time where college, if you weren't joining the military, college was the only option that was purported.
Yeah, I would say that was
us.
the millennial. That was a millennial thing, right? My friends, there was a few out there, the outliers who went and got that trade job or whatever. But in our era, and definitely the 20 plus years prior, so our parents were in that era. Yeah, military. My folks are military, so it's either military or it's college. But you ain't gotta go home, but you can't stay here, that type of thing. Like that, so you had to get out. And of course, we went to war as soon as we became of age, right? Our country went to war 20 plus years ago. But I just don't think that it's some sort of moral obligation. I think it's a moral obligation for me to love my children and to teach them what they should know. But I'm not sure if paying for someone else's college bill is actually my responsibility. And I think there's a lot of people that agree with me, but
It'd be a good it'd be a good discussion. What I think about is the big picture objects of, well, what about marriage? Well, what about if they do want to launch a business? Well, what about, starting a family and getting their first home and all these things that we do know they're going to live somewhere. We do know they're probably going to find somebody and begin a life with them. We do know they're going to do those things. So college, not college, that's somebody's decision for themselves. But if we could be positioning ourselves by assuming the banking function for ourselves to prepare for whatever our children's gifts, like I still don't fully understand my children's gifts.
Yeah, our kids are little. Yeah,
that's right. And what life might have for them. But I do want to be well positioned for whatever may come, especially the big picture things that I know are going to take place. They're going to want a home. They're going to want a first car. They're going to want to be able to marry the person that they love and those types of things. So.
Right. Love it. Okay, baby step 6.
So 6, pay the house off early. This is another fun one.
All right, here we go.
I think so. Pay the house, and from the start, Dave will tell you to get a 15-year mortgage, not a 30-year mortgage.
He will say that,
and he will tell you a lot.
Yes.
A lot. And so let me kick it back to you.
All right, cool.
So we're on the 15 versus 30.
All right, so we got a couple of different ways to think about this. Okay, so the 15-year mortgage argument is that we're going to be able to pay it off sooner, right? That's number one. We all understand that math. 15 years of no mortgage payments, and how do you feel? He addresses the human condition here.
He does.
How do you feel with no payments? How do you feel with a house that is taken care of? Okay, now here's the question. Let's go to Kiyosaki for 1 second. Kiyosaki and others are going to ask the question is, if you own that house, is it an asset? You still have property taxes and things like that. You need to live somewhere. I'm going to give you all that.
Yep.
I need to live somewhere as well. But could the money that house is not generating in a paid off situation, could the money be actually bringing you income?
The answer is yes.
It could. We all could know this. I mean, we all know this, even if your preference or your paid off house is feeling really good to sleep inside of right now. Mm-hmm. Could you leverage those unused dollars for income and lifestyle rather than have them sit around?
And you actually asked me this earlier, and I didn't address it when I was talking about our debt. So we do own our home and property outright.
Okay.
And we have for some years now. So I get the psychological aspect of, and I don't necessarily walk around barefoot, but Dave talks about, the grass feeling different, when it's
I bet you do though. I look at your Instagram. You do stuff like that.
We do stuff outside the shoe. My shoes are normally on though.
Okay.
Because I'm working outside on the property doing something to improve it. So there is that. So again, just going back to human nature for a moment.
Yeah,
I get
part.
The value there. But again, you still got to ask yourself, could we do multiple things with those dollars?
Yeah, could you do multiple things with those dollars? So don't think either or, think about the and, right? Think about the and part of utilizing it through a financing tool like whole life insurance. Okay, so what else did we say? Paying off it early. Oh, and here's another thing. So ladies and gentlemen, are your inflated dollars here? Let's think about that for a second. Are dollars worth more today or are they worth more in the future? Today, they're worth the most they'll ever be today, right? The inflationary and the deflation of the dollar makes it worth less. We buy less things with it. So actually, the longer we have a mortgage, you can also factor in the fact that we're paying for the house with less valuable dollars over time. So instead of using good dollars to get into the 15-year game, what if we used our best dollars, today's dollars, to get into a cash flow game? Mm-hmm. And then we pay off our mortgage with weak dollars later because they were worth more when we went back and we bought a cash flowing asset with them.
It gives us the stronger use now of the dollars to do great things with.
So if you did not understand that, and I'm not saying that you're dumb, we got a lot of great people listening to us, but I don't think I would have understood what I just said in 2005.
Not at one go.
Yeah, I wouldn't have understood it. So let me say this. If you have $1 now and you can buy something that brings you $2 a month, right? That's a drastic extreme example. But if you have $1 now, would you spend the $1 and it's gone to try to get out of your house debt? Or would you use the $1 to buy something that brings you $2 every month and now you still have $1 to pay off your house with, and you have $1 extra because your asset brought you $2.
That's right. Cash flow.
I would not have understood it the way I even said it 5 minutes ago, because it's such a big deal. That's why I was out of money. I got out of debt with Dave Ramsey's program, and then I was broke. I had no money. I had no cash flow, right? All right, big deal. Okay, so we will let you pay off your house or let you leverage that money before we move on to our next baby step. What's next, man?
And the last one is, and I think it's really summed up well in the legacy journey that I'm reading currently. I'm really enjoying this book. Love reading behind Dave. It's growing and giving. Are the two key words, I guess, in this last and final step of you're looking at the next generation. You're looking at the charities and the organizations that you care a lot about. Of course, you're looking to hand off, generational wealth to knowledgeable, capable children, and knowledgeable, capable organizations. So you're looking to continue growing your wealth, and you're looking to be able to give in a massive way.
Love it. So I don't have any challenges on that one. That is a beautiful thing. The question is, what financing products and tools are you going to use to get there? Because that is a life well lived, and that is a purpose well driven, as Rick Warren would say. This is like the Christian podcast audio financial guys or whatever. So I had to bring a little Rick Warren there for a second because that is beautiful. And I remember him talking about something about those Arnold Schwarzenegger dollars or something like in the Total Money Makeover. Doesn't he say that? It's been a little while since I read it. Y'all know, put it in the comments. Did we get it right? And do you understand what is going down when we're talking about financing purchases and where you do that from? It's not just about getting out of debt. It's not just about actually doing it in the fastest way, but what about the most efficient way? What about the most efficient way? What about the fact that after you're out of debt, like I was, you still have to live life and spend money, but the problem is you didn't have any anymore. Big deal. And if you did pay off your debt in Jesse's format, use the debt snowball, but obviously had a baseline financial product in whole life insurance to pay off your debt, then you've been growing and cash flowing the whole time.
Well, as you've seen and heard, that was a great conversation. I really believe it only scratched the surface. I'm a big fan for lots of reasons of having conversations about personal finance and, of course, taking it back to the core for us, which is who controls the banking function in your life. No matter which program or plan or paradigm you're following, you can be the banker in all of those scenarios. So I hope that you enjoyed that conversation between Jadu and I. I'm looking forward to more. We have plans in motion to cover more of those subjects at length and in depth. But if you're interested in knowing what it could look like for you to become your own banker, once you go to our website, www.durhamtalents.com, and feel free to get in touch with me. Let's get in my calendar so we can have a conversation about your particular financial situation and goals and plans and ambitions and dreams. And I do look forward to that conversation. This has been a great pleasure for me. I hope you have a great day. Take care.